404 not found. Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, as the case may be, depending on where you are at in the United States. What are you doing? The music is being really weird today, Brian.
I hear it.
Welcome to Dead Reckoning Radio, where we have weird music, and we are live, so we can't do anything about it. We're not retaking. I'm your host, Jay Friesen, and from her townhome in Denver, Hadley Heath. And across the table from me, Dr. Brian G. Mattson.
Hello, everybody.
Today we will be intelligently discussing, as we do every show, those critical cultural moments from a distinctly Christian perspective. For those of you joining us on our live stream chat, I'm looking at it right now. Hello,
at you.
Becca.
Becca is with
Thank
us.
you for joining us. You guys are the best. You cats are awesome. And if you are joining us on the podcast and you wish you were on the live stream, then head over to deadreckoning.tv and subscribe to one of our channels to be notified of our record dates and times. And speaking of podcasts, while you're there, thank you so much for giving us a 5-star rating. Or 4-star if you just don't like Brian or something.
It's quite possible.
It is quite possible. And we are live streaming, so if there is, for those of you on the live stream, if there is a tech issue, just hang on and we will come back.
I like how
there are.
casual this show has become. Hadley's over there just stuffing her face with
I'm
with
so
lunch.
hungry. I'm
You know,
sorry.
baby Manning is growling or something. So
Yeah.
Hot Pockets.
It was. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. What can I make in 2 minutes before the show starts?
Yeah.
Oh, Hot Pockets.
Only it's a lean pocket, right?
It was a lean
And
pocket.
that's the
Now
problem.
it's gone.
You're complaining about baby Manning being hungry all the time, and you're feeding baby Manning a lean pocket. This
know.
doesn't work.
This doesn't work. It needs to be a fat
I
pocket.
did have, I had the other day I sat down thinking maybe like a bowl of butter popcorn would be good. And that entire bag of butter popcorn was gone before I got up. So I do eat some junk food every once in a while. I don't
Good
know
for
what
you.
it is. You know, like I've tried to eat the fattier, junkier foods thinking, will this satisfy me? And then I think, well, maybe I need to be eating more protein because that'll really satisfy me. And no matter what I eat, I cannot be satisfied these days. So
Wow.
third trimester problems. It's exciting though.
Yeah, when we had our
Very
first
cool.
baby, Molly and I were working together, and she'd be like, I'm really craving a caramel roll right now. And then about 3 seconds later, she'd hear my car fire up, and I'd be leaving the parking lot. And I would come back with 2.
With two
It's called sympathy cravings.
Sympathy cravings.
Yeah.
Yes, I have the sympathy ones.
So I read today that men actually, like around the time that their mate bears a child, they actually can have more estrogen in their system, more female hormones. And some scientists think that this might be nature's way of making men more nurturing around the time that their family is growing.
I was
So-
wondering why I felt like I had fattier pecs. You know, they're just a little floppier than normal. I was like, I'm doing extra push-ups.
So you're a nurturing dad.
That's
But
so
maybe
funny.
this is some evidence from nature that men are supposed to be involved in nurturing too.
Oh, sure.
you know?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I know we think that, but
I thought it was really funny when my youngest came over to me one time and grabbed and pulled my shirt down and looked at me with a very coy smile and said, "Nurse," and she wanted to nurse. She says, "Nurse." And then she burst out laughing and she goes,
Go find mom.
like that's the silliest thing. So she played a prank. She played a joke on me. It was fantastic.
Kids, today's show is brought to you by the Alliance Defending Freedom, defending your right to freely live out your faith. Visit them at www.adflegal.org to find out the latest in religious freedom, sanctity of life, and marriage. Or just listen to our show and thank them for supporting us. And we are going to be talking about religious freedom because today's show is a doozy. We've got Obama's gender-bending decrees. Hello, King Darius. Evangelical.
King Darius. Ooh.
That's all I could think of was King
Nice,
Darius.
I like that.
Evangelical sex scandals.
Fun.
And Little Sisters are throwing down big.
Yeah, Little Sisters.
But first, we're going to continue with our quick takes. Hadley, aside from being pregnant, you're still on cable TV, right?
All the time, right?
Yeah, I've had a busy week. I was also supposed to go on yesterday, but then the Egypt airplane went missing, and I got bumped for breaking news. So most of my other cable appearances this week have been election 2016 related. So nobody wants to hear about that.
No, not really.
We keep hearing enough about that.
Kind of a depressing topic.
I don't even
in
think we're
many
talking
ways.
about it this week. Well, we might
We're
touch
not,
on it.
Yeah, we're not really talking about it. So, what of the topics? I mean, is it just sort of like the day-to-day 24/7 news cycle, responding to the last thing Donald Trump said, or
Right. We since I work for a women's organization, the New York Times printing a long article about Donald Trump's prior relationships with women.
Oh, sure.
Was kind of a big thing for us this week, so I had to respond to that on CNN. And we got called upon to discuss, we get weird topics sometimes, but we were asked to talk about, in the conservative world, what's the likelihood that there will be a third party candidacy, and what's the strategy there. And one thing that I find a lot of people may not know, and I didn't get to say this on the air, I didn't really want to, because when I go on the air, I have very limited time, and my role, as I see it, is to offer commentary. So I have the opportunity to present my opinion. It's really the role of journalists and reporters to offer the explanatory information.
Right.
But something that I feel like needs to be explained is our Constitution allows for, in the scenario that no major party candidate gets 270 electoral votes, the U.S. House would decide who the president is.
Right.
And that's a key part of the sort of these, I think, not ultimately realistic ideas about a third party candidacy would be if you ran someone in 3 or 4 states and it was enough to block Clinton and Trump.
Right, they would keep them from getting to 270. Right.
Right. And then the House would decide who the next president is.
This would be like Bill Kristol's strategy, right? He's a Weekly Standard editor, and he's been trying to gin up a third party run. Is that his plan? Is just, hey, keep them from 270?
Yeah, I think anybody who's really involved with this understands that facet of constitutional law and would be looking to exploit that as their strategy. It would not be a nationwide third-party candidacy. It would just target specific states.
Battleground states, right.
Which I think is fascinating from a legal perspective, but I don't know how.
Why don't we get multiple? Why don't we get multiple candidates? So Rick Perry,
Right.
you win Texas, right?
Right. Yeah.
Marco Rubio, you run in Florida. Kasich run in
Maybe.
Ohio. Right? Maybe Rubio probably not.
I think
but
Trump might still win Florida.
I think he
Yeah.
might. But how about like Kasich in Ohio? That's an interesting strategy. It's not going to happen. Too bad.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, I was thinking about Colorado in the mix. We don't have that many electoral votes compared to some other states, but Coloradans do not like Donald Trump. Like Ted Cruz swept here.
I know. That's incredible because Colorado's kind of a purplish state, and like I couldn't believe that Ted Cruz did as well as he did. Hey, you know who's in Billings today?
Who?
Former president of the United States. Mr. William Jefferson Clinton is in Billings, Montana today.
Isn't that sad when like we don't even rank high enough to get the actual candidate? We get like
it's interesting though. It's interesting that she's deploying Bill to come to our podunk little 3 electoral college vote state. That shows how much pressure she really is under from Bernie. And it's interesting that he's coming to Billings and not Missoula or Bozeman, right? He doesn't go because they're all going for Bernie probably. So he's coming to kind of the eastern side of the state where he's maybe can have some impact. So it's anyway.
Well, she said that she's going to make him the economic czar if she's elected.
czar. Because we are.
Yes.
Never mind.
Because
This
we're
is
Russia.
America.
Because we're Russia. We need czars.
Yeah. Well,
Hello.
Also, I haven't really figured out how I feel about this yet, but I would be so curious to hear, like, frankly, what left-leaning feminists think about the first female candidate to be this close to the White House to say,
My husband's going to take care of that.
I'm going to let my husband handle the money, I just
Feminism.
something about that
Feminism.
didn't really
Shatter the glass ceiling. Oh,
Yeah.
That's great. Funny.
Yeah.
So Hadley's been eating a lot and talking, being a talking head on TV.
That's
a
so
lot.
funny.
That's cool. What have you been up to, Jay?
You're kind of looking at it. I've been spending some time with a local director, and we're kind of trying to work on building up his film production business. So I've been pitching out a few series projects. One of them with an author down in Nashville that I'm pretty excited about. We're still in development on it, but if that comes through, that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be awesome.
And we're still trying to sell our house. We lowered the price today and had an offer. Well, we didn't have an offer. We have a showing, an official showing at 3. So
It'd be great if you could sell
It'd
your
be
house.
amazing if we could sell our house. Huge amount of stress gone. But that's my life. That's what I've been doing. Just
Okay.
kind of production stuff
Cool.
and hanging out. But you have been globetrotting.
I globetrotted. Yeah, last week I was in Budapest. I said that just because Remley wanted to hear me say that on the air. Sound like a snob and say Budapest.
There's a lot of people that wanted you to say that on the air.
Budapest. I didn't know this, but Budapest, Hungary, is really twin cities. The Danube River cuts right through the heart of it, and on one side is the city of Buda, and the other is the city of Pest. And so when they connected the two cities by bridges, it just became Budapest. I didn't realize that. It's a beautiful city. I had a wonderful, wonderful time. I taught a course on worldview and cultural engagement to ministry leaders all throughout Eastern Europe and Russia. So we had people from Poland and Slovakia and Albania and Romania and Hungary, and it was a great opportunity. The architecture in Budapest is amazing. Even more amazing is the Soviet architecture that they put up right around gorgeous, beautiful Gothic architecture. The Soviets were a blight on the world, not just the murder and the mayhem and the gulags. Their buildings are so ugly. What in the world? I mean, I got pictures of this Soviet block housing. It's like, what were these people thinking?
Yeah, and they said
incredible.
that it was what did they used to call it, like the Soviet block, BLOC?
BLOC, right.
Yeah,
Well,
they kept that theme through their architecture.
Oh my goodness! It
Yeah.
was. I actually saw a gorgeous building, and that had an addition literally tacked onto it, and the addition was Soviet bloc style housing onto this gorgeous, building.
It was a Soviet
And I was
bloc
just like,
block.
these people, there's got to be a special place in hell for the person who thought that was a good idea. Anyway, made a lot of good
Maybe
friends.
there's something with the philosophical ideology of communism that
There is,
feeds into a strictly utilitarianism, no beauty, no art, it's all function for the people.
It's
type
all
of thing.
reason. It's all rational, and so aesthetics was not important.
Why would you even what? If you believe that much in an ideology, and it's like, okay, well, we're anti-art. I mean, who wants to live in an ugly world? Really, people.
Hey, the Cultural Revolution in China, I mean, communism is notorious for this. The Cultural Revolution was to destroy all of the great bourgeois art.
Yeah.
And it's just a travesty. And
Islam is similar.
so I think everybody should run out and support Bernie Sanders, because socialism and collectivism is such a great idea. That was
But
sarcasm
at
if you
least-
didn't get that.
At least then all the buildings would be the same.
Equal. They would be equal.
Yeah.
Right.
They'd be equally horrible.
Equally
all
ugly.
equally horrible. Just like socialism wants us all to be equally poor,
Equally poor, equally ugly.
destitute.
Just so long as it's equal.
Guys, a couple more things on quick takes that are worthy of touching on. Somebody started a hashtag campaign to get Disney to give Elsa a girlfriend in the Frozen sequel.
Of course.
Now, surprisingly, the LGBTQ people lined up in favor of the idea.
Yeah.
Franklin Graham and various family organizations didn't. Imagine that.
And so petitions, let me guess, petitions went flying everywhere.
I don't know. Do you have any outstanding thoughts on this?
I do.
Major news. Piece
I
of
do.
major news.
Everything is political. Everything is political. An animated movie for children with a lovely little fairy tale story has to be politicized. It's driving me crazy. Lighten up, people. Lighten up. I mean, this poor girl who suggested this on Twitter. Hey, why don't we have a lesbian character? She got treated very shabbily, I think, on Twitter. And of course, Franklin Graham and all these family organizations, act like this is some kind of a serious thing. This is just an individual person asking Disney to have a gay character, and everybody acts like nuclear war has been declared. And I understand. I'm cynical. I think these family organizations make money off of this. They we're going to have a petition to keep Disney from doing this. Disney I don't think has any intention of doing this, right? But they stoke the hysteria. They get more donations. I understand how the game is played, but can we stop politicizing everything?
No.
Now, those are
Sounds
my
like-
thoughts.
Sounds like what you're saying, Brian, is let it go. Let it go.
Mic drop.
Just let it go.
Mic drop. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
man.
what I'm saying.
Since Aaron's a pediatrician, we don't have little kids yet, but since he's a pediatrician, he has to know a lot about Frozen because a lot of his little patients come in there.
I've got three.
Anna fans.
Yeah.
I've got three.
I think it's Anna.
I've got three.
sorry.
I've got three small kids, 5, 3, and 1.
Budapest.
And I've got 5, 3, and 1 in the house, and we have not watched Frozen yet, nor do we really want to. What we did watch recently was Minions, the Minions movie.
Oh,
and the
was it any
kids
good?
fell in love with it. Then they
Okay.
went and watched Despicable Me. So now I've got like Minions everywhere, and everyone's running around the house going, Nana, Nana, for bananas, because that's what they want in the
Right.
morning is Nana. And it actually works out really well for my daughter. But
You haven't watched Frozen?
no. But here's something that came up this morning.
You should. It's a really good movie.
They were running around and saying, "Where are my vitamins?" And my wife is like, "Do they have Vitaminions? Because if they don't, they're missing an awesome.
Minions.
They're missing an awesome marketing
Eat the
opportunity."
Minions.
Yes, Vitaminions.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
The Guttemacher Institute released a report that the abortion rate in the developing world has declined significantly over the past 25 years. Everybody give a round of a slow clap, golf clap. In 1990, the rate was 47 abortions per 1,000 women, and that number has declined to 27 per 1,000.
yes.
While that's an encouraging sign, the report is mixed due to population increase. The total number of actual abortions, not the rate, has increased. 1 in 4 pregnancies globally ends in abortion. 75% of the abortions are, get this, obtained by married or cohabitating women. Are they all having affairs?
I don't know. Hadley, you're the one that actually dug that out of the Guttemacher
Yeah.
report. What are your thoughts on that? 75% of women obtaining abortions are married or cohabitating.
Well, I don't want us to miss the lead here. The lead here is the abortion rate has declined significantly.
Right.
And I think so often
In the developing world. Oh, no, in the
Right.
developed world.
in the
I think that's-
developed world.
Developed.
But
ED.
the abortion rate also, I think the numbers from the report look like maybe a little decline in the rest of the world too, but it wasn't significant, statistically significant. So overall, globally, we can say the rate is on the decline, which I think is some excellent news. I mean, we can all celebrate this. This is not, pro-life versus pro-choice. I hope that there's a lot of people who are pro-choice who still believe that abortion should be rare, should be the last resort. And I think this, may be an indication that there are fewer women in the world who are in this desperate situation facing this horrible choice. So let's celebrate the good news. We have bad news all around us all the time. So I just want to take a minute and just be like, this is great. There are more people alive today
Then there would
that
have
would
been.
that would not be alive if the abortion rate had stayed constant, or imagine if it had been on the increase. Right. So somebody is walking around today having a wonderful life because their mom chose life, and she's a part of this statistic, and that's just a fabulous thing. But you're right. There's some other information in the report that's less encouraging. And one, I pulled out the statistic about married and cohabitating women because I thought it was a little surprising. I just think our cultural depiction of abortion is a young single girl, maybe even a teenager. And I think something like 12% of abortions are to teenagers. Most of them are to women in their 20s. So actually about 59% of people who get an abortion already have a child. So it's not really typical that the woman seeking an abortion is very young and single and had a fling or had a really irresponsible boyfriend. It's much more common, according to this report, that it's a woman who's in a very serious relationship with a man, living with him or married to him. And that made me sad. Of course, any situation where a woman seeks an abortion is sad, but this just indicates that, it raises a lot of questions in my mind. Are women telling their husbands and their significant others about this? Are they doing it on their own? Are they being encouraged by their significant others to have abortions? Are they, what is that conversation like? And, we talk a lot at my workplace about how all issues are women's issues. But I think this is an indication that all issues are men's issues too. That abortion is not just her body, her choice, her responsibility, but in most cases, there's someone who's involved even beyond, the bare minimum involvement that we know that every abortion has a man behind it somewhere, right?
Yep, right.
But in 75% of cases, he's got an opportunity to be really involved as a father, it sounds like.
And what is he doing in 75% of cases? Apparently.
Right. Does he know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It'd be really, that's a great question. And I don't know how we would find that. I don't know how the Guttmacher report, where are they getting these statistics? I'm just curious. I don't really know, where they're getting the data.
I think most of the time they publish it on their website, so go check it out.
I could definitely check that out.
That was me. Jay Jerk Today 1.
Yes. All right. So you're saying, Hadley, that this is a cultural indicator that manhood is failing in our culture, that men are not taking responsibility as they ought to, perhaps, in these cases. If they know, but they're not, and they're just sort of, but then again, we've conditioned men, right? For 40 years, we've conditioned men that it has nothing to do with you. It's her body, it's her right, it's her choice. And the man has been left out in the cold, and we've told them for 40 years that you have no responsibility, you have no right to take any responsibility in this decision. And so maybe men are just acting accordingly to what we've taught them for 40 years.
Well, and part of what the Guttmacher data tells us is that about 75% of abortion patients are classified as poor or low income. And so I think a lot of what, maybe drives people to seek abortions may be concern about their financial stability in their family to be able to provide for this child, especially considering if they already have a child or multiple children in their household. But, this raises even more questions in my mind, because I think, is there significant information out there available about the supports that families might receive if they do give life to their child? If they, is there significant information about the option of adoption? I don't know, but it seems like it would be even harder. In a way, I think it would be harder to process. Okay, I'm going to give my child up for adoption, even though I'm married and we have a household and we have other children, than if you were the situation that I think is sort of typically the depiction of single, unexpected pregnancy.
It's also we're so short term in our evaluation rather than long term, and I don't think there's enough. It's just not in the popular consciousness to realize that children are an economic benefit. They're not an economic liability. We tend to think of children as another mouth to feed, but having children is not like having a pet. Okay, you don't just have another mouth to feed. You have another human being who's created in the image of God. You have a person that is innovative and imaginative and gives much more than they take. And in the long term, having children is an economic benefit to you. Might you struggle during their childhood years to provide? Well, you might. But that person is going to be economically productive, and in your later years might be of great help to you. It is a net benefit for families and for society to have children. And I don't think that that's said nearly enough. We tend to think of kids as just another mouth to feed. They're not.
Yeah. I'll say something else, too, just being someone who is experiencing pregnancy right now for the first time. I think a lot of our friends and family members even may just assume that the reason we are starting a family is because we want to, and that selfishly having a child will bring us more happiness. And I don't deny those things whatsoever. I'm very excited to become a mother. It's a dream of mine. I cherish the idea of, holding, caring for my baby and having a daughter and watching her grow. And of course I have a lot of dreams for her that yes, I expect there to be joy in that relationship that brings pleasure to me and happiness to me. But the real reason is, I think, more complex than what's on the surface. And that is Aaron and I, we feel that it is a huge blessing and really a way that we show obedience to God to participate in his life-creating process, that we are told to be fruitful and multiply, and that creating another image bearer of God is a way that we participate in building his kingdom here on earth. And so I think that culturally, though, a lot of that gets lost because the idea is, how many kids you want to have, because it's up to you and it's all about you. And if you want one, you have one. If you don't want one, you don't have them. And there's no other, no
bigger
values
purpose,
or worldview or picture about what it means to be a parent or what it means to procreate. It's just about, what do you want? What do you want?
It can be absorbed into our narcissistic culture that it's all about me. I mean, a lot of people do have children and treat their children as accessories. Well, I've got my boy and I got my girl and I've got my life accessories, and I think that's sad. And I appreciate what you said, Hadley, that to see the bigger picture, the bigger purpose, to see it as a calling, right? Not just my choosing, but it's my calling. It's beautiful.
Another cultural phenomenon that I think has a lot to do with this is, we talked about resources and finances. I think the expectations today, especially that people in developed westernized countries have for what it takes financially and in terms of material resources to raise a child, are greater than what we've ever experienced in history. Because I can look back at generations of people who had many more children on average than the American household today, and they provided enough. They didn't provide piano lessons for every child, but they did provide enough. And, the most important resource I think that children need is unconditional love, and that's a resource that we get from the Holy Spirit. That's something that God gives to us that we can be a vessel of and for. But in terms of, the material resources, I think people have a lot greater, they put a lot more pressure on themselves in terms of, what they think that they need to provide for their children,
right?
Than they used to. And, for better or worse, I got to say, I'm very blessed. I'm one of two children. My parents have provided a whole lot for me,
Right.
And if I had more siblings, I might have had fewer resources available to me. But then I would have more brothers and sisters, so there's some trade-offs.
Right. There are trade-offs. Yeah, there are people who think, their expectations of what they need to provide kids are probably a little bit out of whack.
It's definitely
you really don't have to spend $10,000 on your baby's nursery. You really don't. You do not probably need that $1,500 crib.
There is a high, there is a
there.
strong element of needing to be somewhat selfless instead of selfish when having kids, and they add an element of stress to life that a lot of people just don't want, and I get that. It's sometimes it's too easy for me to go and just assume that this person doesn't want kids for this reason or that reason.
Right.
It tends to be a little more complex than that. And
oh yeah,
and I try
trouble.
And I try to tell,
biologically speaking.
Right. True. But I do try to tell people it's so mysterious. It's just totally mysterious. You would think that, oh man, the kid's just gonna suck you dry, and having children, and there's something mysterious about the bond and the relationship between a parent and a child that you're not shriveling. You're expanding. Your capacities expand. Your patience expands. You think that this little kid is going to just be such a hassle, and what you find is that you have more capacity, and so it's less of a hassle than you think it's going to be. It's it's not a matter of subtraction. It's a matter of addition. And, it's, how do you explain that to somebody? I don't know how to explain that to somebody. You have to experience it.
Yeah.
Well, I think
So here's something
Go ahead.
that's related, and I'll mention this because I don't think I mentioned it on our last podcast, and I want to recommend this article to some of our listeners. But I read an article, I believe it was in The Atlantic, and it was called "The Secret Shame of the Middle Class." And the point of the article, the author focused on the statistic that 47% of Americans said in response to a survey that they could not get together $400 in the case of an emergency.
Oh my goodness. Really?
Yes, it was mind-blowing to me. But the rest of the article was sort of a description of how many more people, even beyond what we consider low income, live truly from paycheck to paycheck, that they have costs in their household every month that are equivalent to their earnings, and they're just very dependent on that next paycheck. And so I found this fascinating, but I think that, in terms of the abortion issue, and I said earlier, 75% of abortion patients in the U.S. are low income or are poor. There's a facet to this story about financial literacy and about being able to escape generations of poverty, and really being able to have a life that you can get the kind of wages, increasing wages, aspiring to a better, more secure financial place for your family, that illustrates to me that another separation in the issues we have is economic issues and social issues, and that's like not a very clear line sometimes,
Not
because
very
we
helpful,
want people exactly we want more people to feel like if something happened in their family and they had an unexpected third, fourth, fifth baby, then they would be in a position to provide for that child. But I recommend that article to everyone because it was pretty shocking to me.
That was a great article. I remember reading
how many
it.
people struggle to save or to have any real financial stability.
Yeah, and I think that article is talking also about our debt crisis, and not just national debt crisis, personal debt crisis.
Credit card debt is almost at $1 trillion in this country, so that's
My goodness.
my credit
Yeah.
card debt is 0. Woohoo!
woo.
Well, mine will be back to 0 at the end of the month, but wow, that bill was big this month.
Well, yeah, I mean, ongoing, I don't have any, but
Yeah.
I use my credit card for expenses.
Yeah, I pay it off every
This
month.
show is probably going to go a little long because that was supposed to be a quick take, and that's fine. I just want to give
We can
all of
skip-
our.
It
but-
was.
but
I
you know
totally
what?
forgot
I don't know
that.
that I don't know that I really want to skip any of these, and we could skip
Well, we
segment
could
3.
we could skip segment 3. That really.
I don't think that I really don't think that the conversation about the Little Sisters case is going to be that long, but
Oh, okay.
it's up to you guys.
All right, well,
That's
we'll
good.
just forge forward.
Let's
you
just
guys.
roll with
We'll
it.
Forge forward. Forge. In a unanimous 8-0 decision, the Supreme Court vacated the ruling against the Little Sisters of the Poor and other parties, instructing the lower courts to fashion a solution to the legal conflict in a way that respects their religious convictions. But before we talk about the details, well,
Right.
to get us into the details, let's have our resident expert on all things Obamacare, the great Hadley Heath, give us a little refresher on what this case was about.
Yeah, this was exciting news this week. So, to make a long story
Exciting
short,
for policy wonks like Hadley.
Yeah.
It was like an early birthday present.
We just lost
Yeah.
2 live stream viewers the moment we went to the wonky thing. No, I'm kidding.
no.
I'm kidding. I'm joking.
Okay, well, I think everyone has reason to be excited about this ruling, not just wonky people, but I'll give a little background. So the Affordable Care Act includes a regulatory requirement that all employer-sponsored health insurance plans include coverage for all FDA-approved contraceptive services, drugs, and devices. We heard a lot about this in 2014 because Hobby Lobby stores and some other for-profit, closely held family companies sued the government over that at that time. Now, sort of in response to the Hobby Lobby case, the federal government offered what they call an accommodation to nonprofit religious employers. Not churches. Churches are exempt. Houses of worship are exempt from this requirement. But if you are an auxiliary or organization like a group of nuns, for example,
Right.
or a Christian college
Christian
or a Christian
school, right.
hospital, exactly. then you were given this so-called accommodation. But the accommodation, importantly, asked these employers to fill out some paperwork that says, we're signing off on our third-party administrator, our health insurance plan, offering this coverage anyway. And that was the big objection from so many of these employers. They said, you don't get it. It's not just that we're against paying for and providing the coverage directly to our employees. We're against signing off on it and saying this is okay with us, because it's not okay with us. That's the point of a moral objection, is to say this is not okay with us.
Right.
And so across the country, several nonprofit employers filed lawsuits against this so-called accommodation.
Including
And-
my alma mater, my seminary, Westminster Seminary, was involved in this case.
All right. There were many, and some of them were litigated by our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom. Some were litigated by other friends at the Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty. And 4 appellate courts ended up ruling on the merits of these cases. 3 out of the 4 sided with the government and said, you know what? This isn't really a burden on your religious liberty, so get over it. And to say get over it means the employers would be faced with some pretty bad options. You know, they would have to violate their conscience, their religious conscience, and sign the forms and allow their employees to be contacted and provided with the coverage they find objectionable. Or they would have to pay millions of dollars in fines. We're talking $100 per worker per day that you're in violation of this particular part of the Affordable Care Act, which is worse, by the way, than the penalty for not providing insurance at all. Shows you where the priorities of the Obama administration are, right? But then that would ultimately, we know what that means. That means a lot of employers would just say, we're going out of business. We can't care for the sick and elderly and poor and dying, and we can't provide education to, tons of students. We can't continue to do our mission of public service as a nonprofit religious employer. So to get to what happened this week, the Supreme Court finally heard this sort of split circuit issue and wanted to clear things up. And so, yes, they released an unsigned opinion, which means it's unanimous, saying 2 things. Number 1, we're vacating any prior rulings on the issue from lower courts. So whatever you heard about it, forget about it. It's not in place anymore, which was good news for the Little Sisters.
Because they had
and
lost, right?
They had lost at the 10th Circuit, right? And they said these lower courts, need to try again to come to a compromise solution that will suit both parties, the religious employers and the government. The government's interest is that the women who work for these employers, the government really, really wants them to have access to a full plate of contraceptive coverage. That's
Because they can't go to their
very
doctor or the pharmacy
important
and
to the
get
government.
this stuff. Yeah, the government
Right.
has to provide it.
Right. But recently, so the Supreme Court, right before they did this, they had asked all the parties to file supplemental briefings, asking specifically, can you think of a way that your interest would be satisfied, would also satisfy the other party? And finally, at that stage, we're talking very late in the game, the government said, well, we don't think anything should change about the way we want to do this, but if we had to do it differently without having the employers sign off on it, then yeah, we could offer that coverage seamlessly. They used the word seamlessly.
My question is then why? Why were they suing
Exactly.
the Little Sisters of the Poor in the first place?
And how much of our
'Cause it wasn't
taxpayer
what they wanted.
resources have gone into these cases where the government is defending themselves?
I want attorney's fees. That's
Yeah.
what I want.
Now, I want to say, props on the government for being the ones to make the shift.
Well, that's because
Kind
their
of.
case was indefensible. They had no defensible
Yeah, but
case.
at least they attempted. Instead of
Caved.
at least they weren't forced. They sort of were forced.
They
but
were
weren't
kind of
forced.
forced into a logical corner. The Supreme Court justices, by the way, are also lawyers. And I think this opinion is just evidence that the government got lawyered by the top 8 lawyers in the country who happen to sit behind the bench. So
essentially, this was a repudiation of the government's claim that was that their requirement was the least restrictive means by which to accomplish their purposes. By vacating everything and then saying, hey, work out another scheme here, the Supreme Court is saying that is not the least restrictive. There
Yeah.
is there is a solution. Go find it, and then come
Right,
back
and
to us.
They didn't want to rule on some of the other pieces of the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, like does this represent a substantial burden on the employers, or is
So
this
they-
a compelling public interest?
They punted on a lot of those questions.
On the merits of the cases. Right. But I think this is the best possible outcome that the petitioners could have hoped for. I mean, I am very cynical and very skeptical about what the lower courts will actually do and whether or not they will truly in letter and spirit honor this opinion from the Supreme Court. But the only other next best thing that the Supreme Court could have done, considering that 4 of them are staunch liberals,
right.
would have been a 4-4 decision, which would have held in place the 75% loss rate that these religious employers were facing at the appellate level.
4-4 would have meant that the Little Sisters just lose. They would have lost.
Exactly.
So
Right.
this, unanimous decision. So that's really, really
Keeps the
good
issue
news.
alive. Keeps the Little Sisters alive.
Yeah, and they may
Right.
end up back at the Supreme Court, because we the Obama administration, the Obama Justice Department is not exactly favorable towards. I mean, they really, 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 really want nuns paying for birth control. I mean,
They do.
they
They
really
really
are
want them
into
signing
this.
off on it,
They
too.
do.
You know,
they
and
want
I think
the
that's
signature.
That's just representative of the whole culture war. It's like, not only do we can't settle for live and let live.
No.
We got to push so hard that nuns have to sign off on our cultural agenda.
Yeah. It's-
Literally sign off on it. Like literally sign a piece of paper and say, this is okay with me.
This really is, and this gets to the heart of it. Rod Dreher at American Conservative had a wonderful piece yesterday on the eternal culture war. And there's so many people so tired of the culture war, and there's this constant complaining about Christians, why don't we just lighten up, right? Why? And there's this impression given that Christians are the ones picking the fight here.
Right.
No, can we get this straight? The federal government wants nuns paying for birth control. The federal government is now, we're going to get to this later, is now telling us that our children in schools are going to be in locker rooms with members of the opposite sex, or else. I'm sorry, but who's pushing these boundaries? It isn't us. The left is pushing the boundaries, and they're demanding approval, and they're demanding that we sign off on a lot of this insanity. And what can we do? What can we do? But
Talk about it on
resist.
Dead Reckoning Radio.
We live in we live in a free society. This is a republic. We can resist. Under the rules of our republic, we can resist. And the Alliance Defending Freedom Becket Fund just did. They resisted all the way to the highest court in the land and won a remarkable ruling. But I don't see this. I'm not very persuaded by those who just want to throw up our hands and give up. And I think we should resist as long as we can.
I know this is probably silly, but I just keep thinking, who's going to work for the Little Sisters of the Poor who wants this stuff?
Right.
If you go work for
Yeah.
a Catholic charity, if you go work for a group of Catholic nuns, if you are a Catholic nun,
Look, it's a dead giveaway. It is here it is. It is a dead giveaway that what is really at issue here is an ideology and an agenda. When you bring all of the resources of the federal government to bear on a non-existent problem.
yeah.
It's not about solving a problem. It is about an agenda and an ideology. I mean, how many transgender middle school students or high school students do we have that this crisis in our culture that the federal government has to get involved in who can use what bathroom? Again, really a non-existent problem, or if it is a problem, can easily be solved at a local level by reasonable, rational human beings. But no, it has to be done at the federal level with the full weight and force of federal law behind it. And to me, this solving of a non-existent problem is a dead giveaway that it's really the ideology. It's the agenda that's important here.
They must not have enough to do. Guys, we've been at this for 45 minutes. Let's take a quick break. Actually, we don't have any spots yet. We need to get on that.
We didn't have a show last week, so we had a lot to say.
I know.
Hadley and I were just getting it off our chests.
Take a quick drink of water during this intro, and we'll come back with Nerd versus Nerd. Except I forgot to do the music. So, here, let's try it again. Ready?
Let's try it again.
You guys need Brian's refilling his water. Watch. Here it is. Here it is. I love being live. I can just do that.
It's so cool.
Okay, today's Nerd versus Nerd, and if you're unfamiliar with this particular portion of the show, it's a silly little game type of thing where Remley digs up a phrase on the internet, generally something all those new millennial types like Hadley are using. And we read the phrase, and then Brian and Hadley come up with the best answer, either the correct one
the definition,
or the best one. And what has sort of progressed over the last couple months since we've been doing this live stream is that everybody in the live stream chimes in too. So
and it's
an
fun.
opportunity for everybody
really fun.
too. Yes.
and really, this game operates, ladies and gentlemen, on two different levels. It operates at the level of what is the right definition and what's the most creative definition.
I think I mentioned that, but already on the chat, Brian, we've got Team Hadley, Team Brian people.
I have two people on
up.
my side. So that's what Josh says. So okay,
that's
Team Brian,
everybody
baby.
else defaults to Team Hadley.
Everybody likes Hadley.
I intentionally stopped looking at the chat window during this part because I'm trying to play fair and not get helps and hints.
I will tell you what's happening on the chat.
I promise not to look at the chat window for the duration
Okay.
of the game, Hadley.
All right, Brian. Hadley's Megan said that you sound very progressive in your
I'm sorry.
explanations.
I
You
sound
said
progressive.
in yours, yeah.
Am I failing?
I think she's hearing you
Oh
wrong.
my goodness! I what?
You're
Head
getting
desk.
old.
Head desk.
Getting all that was a head desk was a phrase from
From
couple
a
weeks
previous
ago. All right,
Nerd
guys.
versus
Today's
Nerd.
word. Today's phrase. Today's phrase. No chill zone.
No chill zone.
No chill zone. What is a no chill zone? And I'm eyeballing the chat window, waiting for people to pipe up.
What is a no chill zone? Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go with my first instinct here, and this is not very nice.
Oh, that's okay. That makes it fun.
Okay, you guys remember several shows ago, our Nerd versus Nerd was Netflix and chill,
Yeah, I do. I remember that.
and you guys remember what Netflix and chill means,
It's a
right?
euphemism for sex.
We know what that means.
Right. So I'm going to say that no chill zone is a euphemism for a relationship that has drifted into the no chill zone. That maybe they used to
Ooh, that's good.
they used to Netflix and chill, but
not
now
anymore. It's now a no chill
he's
zone.
in the no chill zone.
That's so good, man, Hadley. I can't beat that.
That's a good one. Well, when you give your definition, I'll read the ones that have popped up on the chat. window.
I can't beat that, but I'm gonna go with this. Okay, so a no chill zone is it's a private room in a cigar lounge in which men will go and drink their bourbon or their whiskey and smoke their cigars, but they have to have their whiskey neat, no ice.
Wow.
Very specific.
No chill zone. It's a no chill zone.
Well, that took some thought.
Yeah, it's a no chill
That's-
zone. We don't chill our alcohol here.
All right. So on the chat we have no loitering.
No loitering.
No loitering. Just straight no loitering. and it means you can't Netflix and chill at my place. So kind of like along the lines of Hadley.
Yeah. Hadley's was good.
Why are the
though.
women thinking about sex?
Huh?
Men are thinking about like hanging out, and women
Yeah,
are
women
thinking
are
about
thinking.
sex.
That is kind of odd, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, women think about sex
All
sometimes.
the time.
Yeah. What is the answer? I want to know what the answer
You
is.
guys just sound like some fuddy-duddies. Like, come on.
Oh, Hadley, you cracked me up.
getting shamed
all
here.
right, no chill zone when someone cannot be calmed down. That moment
Oh.
when all bleep is lost. One can be put in a no chill zone by another as a threat. So this is something that Brian would use with me when all of my tech is failing. He'd be like, bro, you are in a no chill zone.
That's bad.
That's
To
bad.
be in a no
It's
chill zone.
bad to be in a no
You need
chill
to
zone.
come into the chill zone. I am so, I am really pleased to announce that in my opinion, Hadley's definition blows the real definition out of the water. And I believe that she should win this
Guys,
week's Nerd versus Nerd.
we on the one level, we respond to culture on this show.
Yeah.
On the other level, we create the culture on this show. So not only are we telling you how a Christian should be thinking about something and engaging with it, but we're also telling you what the definitions should be.
Yeah.
So
and
feel free to start using
If
them.
you want to use the term no chill zone, ladies and gentlemen, you could use it as Hadley has defined it. And that is when a relationship gets icy, you are in a no chill zone. Not a chill zone. See,
yeah.
it's so clever. It's not a chill zone, it's a no chill zone.
You
I
could really
love it.
use it. You could use the internet's definition or my definition, and say, husbands, don't put your wives in a no chill zone,
Uh-huh.
and wives,
Vice versa,
Don't put,
vice
your,
versa.
don't put your husband
In a no chill zone.
in a no chill zone.
I like it.
Don't
I like
make them
it.
freak out.
You can use both
and
at the same time.
Don't put them in a no chill zone.
I like it. It's cool. Good game. Good game.
Speaking of chill zones, they say second terms for presidents rarely go well. And Barack Obama seems intent on proving this very thing. Last week, his Departments of Justice and Education issued a joint letter informing every school district in the country that sex, not the act, but the gender, under Title IX does not mean what's on a birth certificate, but each student's individual gender identity. This means that if your kid's school doesn't allow boys into the girls' locker room or vice versa, they could lose their federal funding. Now, what do we think about this? I think I know where you guys are going to go, but
Let's see. I'm trying to think of like a list of priorities that the government might have. How long would my list of priorities go before
Form a more perfect union.
before
Provide for the common defense.
I'm thinking
Support the general welfare.
Vladimir Putin, Bashar al-Assad in Syria, the chaos in Libya, China's intrusion into the South China Sea. I'm just thinking there's probably a lot of things ahead of. We got to make sure that we get unisex locker rooms.
To be fair, America's not. It's not. Iran is like threatening Kim Kardashian with spyhood, so they're just as equally concerned about important things as we are. I just compared us to Iran.
It's just absolutely incredible to me. And again, going back to what I said at the end of the previous segment, it is a telltale sign that this is about an ideology when the priorities get this messed up. I think that there's a lack of clarity going on in this debate in this country, and that is there are people who have gender ambiguity. It is an extraordinarily tiny percentage of people are born with ambiguity as to whether or not they are male or female. What people are calling transgenderism has very little to do, in most instances, with genuine gender ambiguity. Rather, we are talking about people who psychologically feel or believe themselves to be the other gender. It is not a biological issue. It is simply not a scientific fact that a man can be a woman or a woman can be a man. That is not a scientific
Even though
fact.
men get extra levels of estrogen because their wives get pregnant, if you increase those levels, we would end up.
You know what? You can have all the
Not being able
estrogen
to grow.
increased when your wife has a baby, but you will not menstruate. You will not have a period. You will not be able to bear children, men biologically or not.
Your
women.
DNA will still have an
Science
X
behind it.
chromosome and a Y.
Y chromosomes. This idea that our biology is a pure social construct, cultural construct, individual construct, psychological construct is the real game here. We don't like any constraints of any kind on our desires and our wishes and our wills. And right now, culturally, we have this all-out effort to throw off all barriers or boundaries, including our own biology. So that's the ideology. That's what's going on here, and they're going to make us sign off on it. And if we don't, we are bigots. We're transphobes. We are enemies of the human race. If we don't approve of Johnny thinking he's Jill. I think it's insanity. I think it's cultural insanity. And I'm not going to sign off on it. I'm not going to say that it's okay. It's not okay.
Mm-hmm. I have like all kinds of thoughts about this, and I really haven't shared a lot of them because I just, I think on the last podcast we talked about this sort of in bigger picture terms. Like, what does this mean that we're sort of incapable as a society of drawing any limits on what reality is and is not? Because I mentioned the video where college students could not tell a short white man that he was not a tall Asian woman. Google it if you guys didn't see it. If you didn't hear our conversation on the last podcast. But, gosh, the bathroom thing. One of my thoughts is, what the heck are my federal tax dollars doing in schools in Indiana and California and Texas? I mean, education is not a federal issue, but we have laws like Title IX, which, by the way, I think is a problematic law for many reasons, the way it's been interpreted and used and sadly misused, I think, to the detriment of male students, especially those who are interested in sports opportunities. But yeah, I think don't take the money. This is like a good lesson on, like, don't take money from people that ultimately will try to use that money to control you.
My thought was like, hey, we could actually, this would be a good, like, kind of revolt against the government. We're not going to take your money, and we could decrease the national deficit. And then my wife goes, oh, they'd find other ways to spend it. Darn it.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they would. But there is actually a school board, I think, in Utah who has said exactly that. They sent a letter to the Utah state government and said, you know what, we're not going to follow this guidance, and we're just going to change our budget around so that we're not dependent on federal funding anymore.
Well,
and so
that's what has to happen, I think. I mean, that's the only recourse here. And I actually think we're heading for a time sooner rather than later that the ever-growing encroachment of the federal government into every aspect of our lives, politicizing everything, dominating everything, sending out decrees and executive orders and rulings, we're going to get to a point where a state and some brave, intrepid governor gives the middle finger to Washington, D.C. and says, get out, done. We're not going to put up with this anymore. Could that state be Texas? I suspect it might be, but somebody is going to have to just draw the line somewhere.
If it is, I might move to Texas.
Somebody's got to draw a line.
I think another interesting side note about this issue is, to me anyway, this is an excellent argument in favor of school choice. Because if there are some schools that want to have one policy and some schools that want to have a different policy, well, then parents and families ought to be able to choose. The problem is that the government, usually at the state level, has a monopoly on public schools and how they set policy and curricula and so forth. And so when you don't have the resources to go outside of the public school system, you don't have a school choice program in your state that would allow you to do that, then it matters very much what our education policies are and what our children are being taught in schools, whether it's about reading, writing, and arithmetic, or whether it's about cultural values. So this is an issue. You know, I can dream about a world where everyone chooses a school that suits their values and, you know, a very different system from the one that we have today. But we have the education system that we have today. Right. And sometimes we have to make decisions that govern, you know. But I think, you know, where this started, and again, this gets back to what Brian was saying about who the real aggressors are in the culture wars. This started in Charlotte when the city voted in a 7-4 vote after 3 hours of public comments at night to put it in writing where people had to go to the bathroom. You know, and I just wonder how many people in the city of Charlotte were really struggling with this before the city ordinance. To me,
nobody.
It breaks my heart that the people who are in charge at any level of government think that we as individual citizens and empathetic human beings cannot figure this out on our own. You know, it breaks my heart to think that, and I think there are legitimate concerns on both sides of the issue. You know, I think there are people who are transgender and they have taken steps to look like the opposite sex, and it makes them very uncomfortable to go into the bathroom that matches their anatomy. And I think prior to this whole thing starting in Charlotte, a lot of those people would just walk into the bathroom of the sex that they look like, and nobody would check to make sure that they were going to the right place, and nobody would feel threatened.
Oh, are we back to a non-existent problem?
Everybody raise their hand who doesn't care who takes a dump in the stall next to you. Right here. I don't care.
I think
we're back to check.
Again, we're back to non-existent problem.
Yeah.
Non-existent problem.
But I think, you know, I think the state of North Carolina, and maybe I feel biased and I want to defend the state because it's where I'm from, but I think that there was a lot of value to responding to the Charlotte City Ordinance and saying, you know what, if you're a private business in the state of North Carolina, you don't have to follow this rule. You don't have to accommodate people of the opposite sex going in different bathrooms. You know, because what the city ordinance opened up was a can of worms about not just transgender people, but all people using bathrooms that don't match their anatomy or even their appearance. You know, there's really what they were trying to say is anybody can go anywhere, anytime, and don't you dare question it or you're a bigot, you know? That created legitimate concerns on the opposite side of the issue where people would think, oh my gosh, well now a heterosexual, cisgendered male can go in the ladies' room.
Right.
And nobody's supposed to ask him a question about it or give him an odd look because, well, that's his right now.
Right.
You know, and that's a legitimate concern. So I can understand, you know, transgender people who feel uncomfortable being, you know, dictated where they have to go. And that's, you know, that's the part of the law that I can understand people have conflicted feelings about in North Carolina because publicly owned buildings, universities, schools, government buildings, they did make a rule that you do have to go where your birth certificate says you have to go. And I understand people who are concerned about their transgender friends not wanting to follow that rule, you know. But I can also understand you don't want a grown man in the ladies' room with your young daughter because now he can do that, you know. And so I think there's legitimate concerns on both sides, and I just think, gosh, our government has no faith in us as citizens to be able to do a private business privately.
They have no faith in us because this is what we need to wake up and realize. When they say that opposing this makes you a hateful, bigoted person, they believe it. I think it's time to wake up. They believe you are a hateful and bigoted person. Why would they entrust the solution to this problem to a hateful, bigoted populace. They can't do that. They cannot constitutionally let bigoted, hateful people set policy. They have to do it for us. Progressivism is above all a liberating ideology. It has to find a victim that it must liberate. Okay? The victim of the day, the victim du jour, is the minuscule transgender community, and they must be protected from the hateful, bigoted populace in which these people find themselves. And so they're not going to let us. They're not going to let the market. They're not going to let lesser political authorities like the Charlotte City Council try to resolve this issue, because you're the enemy. You're the oppressor. And so the federal government is the great hero. They're going to step in and they're going to solve it for everybody. And now we have incredible legal insanity, okay? This is all done in the name of anti-discrimination. You cannot discriminate. So now the policy is, as the Barack Obama administration has now set it for all schools in this country, the policy is you have to allow boys who think they're girls into the girls' locker room. But you can't allow boys who don't think they're girls into the girls' locker room. What have we just done? We've just discriminated against boys who don't think they're girls. They can't use the women's locker room. You just created a new discrimination. And if you want to be consistent in non-discrimination as they understand it, you would have to allow all boys to use the women's locker room. You would have to allow all girls to use the boys' locker room. But they don't want to go that far. Now it's only those who have a gender identity. Well, what does that mean? What is a gender identity? Is it identifiable? Is it public? Does it come and go? Does a guy just feel a certain way one day and not the next?
Well,
is it completely
we're going to have to
fluid?
legislate it. We
Gender
need legal
fluidity.
definitions.
How do you create a law or a public policy on something that is utterly ephemeral? Doesn't exist except in the mind of somebody. This is going to create far more problems than it solves.
I wanted to mention, I had a Facebook friend of mine post a very thoughtful 7-point post about this issue, and I tried to contact him before today's podcast because I didn't know if I should give him credit for some of these points. He didn't get back to me, and I don't want to out him. But one of the things, after reading this post, and this is a man in North Carolina who's also a Christian, and after reading his post, and really this is something that I've been thinking all along, but I'm feeling more convicted about. When we have issues like this that come up in our public debates, it is the sowers of hate and division. That's what he called them. They really have a victory by bringing these issues to the front. And it is people who want to work together, to empathize, to share a community, to be peacemakers that are sort of tempted, I'm afraid, to rush to our own corners and avoid topics like this, because it is controversial and people's feelings do get hurt, and people have reason to be angry about this stuff. But we also have, I believe, we are compelled to be good listeners and good learners. And I really need to learn more about the transgender trend or theme or the place in society that transgender or transsexual or intersex people, I need to learn more about that group of people. And I would like to learn more about it. And I hope that people who disagree with us and our worldview will also be open-minded enough to learn about what we're saying, to learn about what we're thinking, and reasons why we don't think it's a good idea for men and women to share bathrooms. I hope that we can continue to keep our hearts and minds open enough to one another in the midst of a sharp conflict like this. Not to say that the truth isn't the truth, because I think at the end of the day, we have to we have to have our principles, but also to recognize that on the other side of these debates, there are human beings. And, you know, we have so many issues like this that when they come up, it's really the two sides they both feel like they've been victimized. They both feel like they're the hated minority, you know, and I don't want anyone to feel because of things that I say or do that they are hated or not welcome in society. But I do think that the sowers of hate and division are winning on this point. And as Christians, you know, it's up to us what we're going to do in response. And in addition to learning and listening, I hope that we can do a good job explaining with empathy what it is that we value and what value there is to maleness and femaleness and to God's creation of humanity as male and female. You know, those are things that are beautiful and wonderful. And we have, I hope, an opportunity to shift the conversation from being totally negative and conflict ridden to here's an opportunity for us to witness to the world about, you know, the fact that we're all depraved and the fact that we all need a savior. And the fact that we are concerned about our brothers and sisters of all kinds, you know. So I don't know. I've been very heartbroken about this issue, but I hope that there are opportunities for it to become something positive, at least in our individual conversations with our neighbors and friends.
Brian, before we get to before we go to break and do our final topic, Beck asked a question that I think is appropriate in this case, and it's true. Is that if it's in the mind of the person, what makes it not a real issue? If it's very real to that person, and why wouldn't you legislate? And my addition to that is then what differentiates what you legislate on versus what you don't? Because there's no uniform thought on something that you can then legislate. Everybody's going to have slightly different vehicles.
Yeah, well, law is the regulation of action and behavior. What thoughts you have in your head are something that is not, you know, what feelings you feel in your heart are not the subject of law and public law. And identity, I mean, the law has to have, it has to have a basis in a public reality. And the public reality that's being invoked here is a birth certificate. Are you male or are you female? Now, male, this distinction between men and women, male and female, is something that goes back to the creation of the world. And until about yesterday, people could tell the difference between a man and a woman. And it is that reason that law has always grounded itself in this distinction that is obvious. It is public and it's obvious. You have a birth certificate. The doctor says when you come out it's a boy or it's a girl, and except in those extremely rare cases where there's genuine ambiguity. And that's why I think it's important to point out that the recent trend in transgenderism is we're not talking about biological ambiguity.
We're not talking about the color of your skin.
We're talking
or
about
how many legs you have.
We're talking about somebody who's confused, deeply confused, and believes themselves to be something that they're biologically not. It's a rule in law that you don't make law or public policy based on exceptions to the rule. When you make a law based on an exception to the rule, then you create more problems than you actually solve. And in this case, transgenderism is the exception to the rule. But the difficulty with public policy is somebody could feel psychologically as though I am not my biological sex. But how is that defined? Can it change tomorrow? I mean, there's now rumors that Bruce Jenner is going to become Bruce again.
Maybe he got paid to go back.
There are rumors that he's not satisfied with this transition. It's just really sad. That's a sad story. But he's going back. So you have a reality that shifts, change, morphs on based on what? The whims of an individual. How do you pin that down in the law? It can't be pinned down in the law. So the guy, the pervert, by the way, I think it's behooves us to say that sexual perversion exists. It is absolutely astonishing to me that in light of this whole debate, it is so rarely faced, the reality that sexual perversion exists. There are people who are very sexually disturbed. So the sexual pervert in high school, the high school boy, decides he's a woman one day and wants to go into the women's locker room and peep around and take videos or whatever he wants to do. And then the next day decides he's not a woman. I'm just saying, how does the law pin this down? How would you prosecute such a case? Let's say you thought this is a crime. He went in and, had no right to be there. Well, what if he just claims, I felt, my gender identity that day was fluid? How does the law, is the law enforced? How do you enforce the law?
I think, my first thought about Becca's question is I think we have a very very hot debate in this country about what it means to be transgender. And you have some people who, like Paul McHugh, who was the head of pediatric psychology at Johns Hopkins University, who would say that it's really more of a psychological issue. And
a disorder.
Right, exactly. And so we have, any number of disorders and psychological issues that people face where they are delusional. And so the question of if it's in someone's mind, is it real? Well, in the case where people are delusional and they have psychological issues, the answer is no. The things that are in their mind are not real. But, of course, there's another side to the debate about the transgender issue, which is to say it's not a disorder, it's not a problem, it is something that we can correct with hormones and surgery and so forth, and it shouldn't be treated the same as other psychological disorders. And so I think that's really what's at the heart of that question, about whether or not things in the minds of people can be real, or whether or not we should recognize those things as real. And I have a question.
And I think it's important to point out that what you think is real in your own head is not the subject of public policy or law. I mean, you can't make a public policy or a law based on what you subjectively think is real in your head.
I have a question for Brian, and it's a Ask a Theologian question. Hashtag Ask a Theologian.
Awesome.
But if I ask this question, guys, probably means we are not going to get to our third topic today. I'm afraid
That's fine. We can roll it forward.
This is going to open up a can of worms. Okay, well, sorry.
What if I don't want to? What if I don't want to answer your question?
If you don't want to answer, Brian, I would say maybe we can just postpone the conversation to another day or off the air. But my question is, and you mentioned that there's such thing as gender ambiguity, but my question for the theologian is, what does the Bible say about eunuchs? And how are we to interpret that with respect to today's questions about people who are transgender?
Too big of a question. What is the? Well, I mean, Jesus talks about eunuchs. Some born that way. Some made themselves that way. That's a big topic. Why don't we talk about it some other time? That way I can think about it and have something better than just shooting off the top of my head, and
sure.
There are some good essays and resources on that question, but I can't bring them to my lips at this very moment to explain it all. But that's a great question. I think we should talk about it.
Okay. And there's some demand on the live stream chat for Jay to answer the question about Becca's question about what's real, and she's clarifying that she meant that the problem is real, not the reality of whether.
Oh, I see. So we totally misunderstood the question and just spent the last 20 minutes talking about something not relevant to Becca's question. So, oh well.
Not a well. Go.
No, they want to hear you. Listen.
They want to hear from you, Jay.
Let Jay answer. They really want Jay to talk. I guess they're tired of listening to us, sadly.
So they want me to.
Team Jay.
Now, I thought I understood the question. Did I not understand the question?
Apparently, I didn't either. So
the question, I think, and Becca, you correct us if we're misinterpreting you, but she's saying, what if the problem is real? not the reality of whether or not a student is a boy or a girl, but they are experiencing a problem. In
Problem
reality,
being,
because
problem is I want to go into this restroom, but they won't let me, and they want me to go into the other restroom. That's the problem that's real. Well, it might be a real problem. It might be
I
a
think
real
in the
problem.
mind, in the
First
mind of
all,
a person, in the mind of the person, there's there's the delusional aspect, yes, but then there are some confused people that it is real for them. It is a real issue for them. But I think the people that it's actually affecting, the legit transgenders out there, I'm not gonna know. And frankly, if the how do I say this appropriately? If the more masculine,
why start now?
if the more masculine woman in a lesbian relationship, for instance, wants to go into the men's restroom, I don't care. She probably will not be able to stand at the urinal. I still don't care. She'll go into a stall, and I really just don't care. There, in the times I've spent counseling a little bit, there's a lot of people out there with the issues in their brains are very real issues. It's like any sort of conflict. It's the issue I'm having with my wife, for example, may very well be a very real issue to me, but is not actually a real issue. But I haven't sorted through it. I haven't worked through it. It's just feeling. It's more emotional based type of thing. But that's my only thought, and I don't know exactly what I'm answering, but I'm just answering. So there we go.
Yeah.
I think not every problem that you face has a legal solution. Not every problem that you face
That's a great
is
word.
a violation of some fundamental inalienable right. Welcome to life on planet Earth in a fallen world. Okay? And I think there is this idea that if I am facing some discomfort, then somebody's violating my rights. This is an epidemic in our culture. We have college students having safe spaces where we're not going to be confronted with some opinion with which we disagree. And we feel like every discomfort is first of all, it's a violation of some right to peace and sanctity that I have, number one. And number two, there's a federal government solution to every problem. It is a sign of a juvenile culture. A decadent culture. When your every problem is some violation of a right, you're like a little child who doesn't get his way. Everything is a violation of my right, and there's a solution. The nanny state will take care of it. The paternalistic state will take care of it.
We're trying to legislate everybody's particular comforts.
Right.
But everybody's comfort levels and things they find comfortable are completely different, which goes back to your issue on how you legislate.
We
what you
used
should
to do
legislate
it
on.
based on the obvious fact that there are men and there are women. Okay? That's
would
how
say
we
too,
used to do it.
Yeah. The cost, though, of having too broad a one-size-fits-all policy, a one-size-fits-all solution for some of these things is not just in the minority group that it leaves uncomfortable, but the cost is really that we don't have the opportunity to find solutions at the very most local level. And I mean this with regard to anything. It can be, take poverty for an example. If my neighbor is having a hard time getting by, and they're on the poverty line, and they need help with something, here's an opportunity for me to be a neighbor. But if there's a federal government solution to that, then there's probably not going to be a local neighbor-to-neighbor solution to that. And if I were a teacher or principal in my school and there was a student who was really struggling with which bathroom to use, well, there's an opportunity for me to be a part of the life of a young person and help them sort through a very serious identity issue at a very formative age, to be an influence, to be a friend, to be a mentor, to be a help, to say, I care about you and I care about this problem that you're experiencing, even if it is a lot in your mind. If you're experiencing a problem, I want to help you and I want to be a friend to you. And if we don't have, if we do have the federal government stepping in to say, we're going to fix this right now with one big fat rule and one big fat letter, then you don't have those opportunities at the very local level.
Hadley just okay. Let's
I want to
say this
two
one.
things.
I want to
say two
first
things.
of all, I want to save that clip right there. I want to cut that out and frame it, okay? Because Hadley just explains to all of us that the federal government kills civil society. The federal government kills those natural, organic community relationships, the voluntary associations of neighbor to neighbor, local schools, teachers and students, teachers and parents, principals and teachers, solving problems. Once the federal government makes a universal rule, Hadley, you just nailed it. It takes it completely out of real relationships, real communities. And conservatives have been saying this for decades now, that the bigger the government, the smaller your civil society, the smaller your local communities, the ties and relationships will be.
You're absolutely right. And building off of that, there's an element of compassion that we need when dealing with these issues and dealing with the people involved in these issues, because I think for a lot of them, it is a very real issue to them. But we need to treat them with compassion and not like craziness. But that also speaks to an underlying element of society that we have lost that is foundational to human flourishing, if you will. And that is the biblical principle of treating your friend or your neighbor better than yourself. Treat others better than yourselves. Mm-hmm. Think not only of your own interests, but the interests of others, and consider others better than yourself. And that's something we haven't done. All of
it's
these
all
policies,
about me.
it's
Am I
all
right?
about me.
Am I right?
It's all about me. It's being selfish. It's about me. And Hadley, you nailed it. You nailed that charitable aspect. Like, this is an opportunity for me to serve someone else in this issue. And it may not result in, all of a sudden somebody becomes straight and they become a Christian and life ends well. That's not the point. The point is you're serving well and being charitable and looking out for the interests of others ahead of yourself. And that's my
this is a huge, it's just amazing to me now, all of the different paths this long segment has gone.
Yeah.
Because it is really, it seems like such a small thing, but it is a window into a real clash of worldviews. It is a real clash where people are very passionate about this, and it's a fault line, a cultural fault line it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I've said enough.
Yeah.
I'm sure we will be talking about it again.
Yeah, we will be talking about it again. And
it's not going anywhere.
We're at an hour and a half, and the other topic is
we don't want to talk about it.
But we're just not going to bother with it. So in an interest of time, we're gonna close the show out. A very special thanks to our sponsor, Alliance Defending Freedom, www.adflegal.org.
Did we have another game that we were going to do before? We didn't.
We did, but
we did. No, I think we should close it. We should close out the show with a game.
Oh, we should. Okay.
Yep.
But I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor because they're awesome.
Do that first. Yeah.
adflegal.org. Thank them for rocking our show today. And if you guys are interested or know somebody interested in sponsoring, give us a holler. hello@deadreckoning.tv. That said, at Brian's behest, the final game of Not the Onion News.
Sweet.
So here's the deal with this game. I read out two headlines. One of them is fake. One of them is real. And Brian has to answer them. So,
just me?
I almost forgot our intro. No, not just Brian, but Hadley as well. And those of you online can participate. Here are your two headlines. We're going to talk about animals. We're going to end on a high note.
All right.
Comedic
Don't
note.
look at the live stream, Brian.
Okay, I'm not looking at the live stream. There is a delay, though, so it's,
There is a delay. Okay, so headline number 1. Stray dog interrupts 5K, takes second place.
Stray dog interrupts 5K, like a 5K run.
Like a 5K run.
And takes second place.
Yeah.
That's so random.
Headline number 2, equally random. Angry homeless bees terrorize neighborhood.
Come on.
I think the first one is real.
No, I'm going with the other one. Angry homeless bees. And okay, so what happened? Okay, here's my guess. What happened is a homeowner was trying to get rid of a wasp's nest, and he destroyed this wasp's nest, and all of the bees flooded out of the nest and terrorized the neighborhood. And so a clever headline writer for some website or newspaper thought it would be cute to call them homeless bees because the guy destroyed their nest. So they're just homeless bees are terrorizing a neighborhood. I think that's the real one, and the 5K race with the dog is not. That's my reasoning.
Okay.
I just think a dog would totally join people in a race.
But it would not lose. It would not take second place. Dog would win.
Well,
Everybody's
maybe there was a really fast person.
everybody's all over the bee story, Hadley. Everybody's all over the bee
They
story.
like the bee story.
Sorry, guys.
All right, guys.
Winner is.
Winner is Concord, California. Nothing was out of the ordinary when Arthur Jenke, 41, moved the first hive on Friday.
Oh, wow.
But when he tried to move the second one, those bees went berserk. Now, for the record, this man was a hobbyist with 15 years of experience. The bees went berserk, stinging him despite his bee suit, attacking his parents, and rampaging out into the neighborhood around Hitchcock Road, stinging neighbors, passersby, a mail carrier, and pets. 2 dogs were killed.
Whoa! No way.
Yep. The terrifying incident comes months after scientists confirmed the Africanized killer bees had migrated from Southern California, so they are, in fact, now testing the bees' DNA.
Oh.
So that's your Not the Onion news story.
Cool.
They killed 2 dogs.
That's incredible.
2 dogs.
I don't want those bees in Montana. Hey, Team Brian.
Freakish.
Team Brian. We win the final game today.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Way
your
to go.
love and support, everybody.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Hadley and Brian, where can people find more about you and stay in touch during the week until next week's show?
Well, you can go to my website, drbrianmatson.com, my public Facebook page, Dr. Brian G. Matson, or my Twitter account, which is at Brian G. Matson.
I'm also on Twitter at Hadley Heath. If you just can't wait to hear from me again in the next podcast, you can follow all my cable TV news appearances. I usually tweet them there. And during the work week, I work for the Independent Women's Forum, IWF.org. You can find more of our work there. We are about free markets and limited government. And importantly, when I join Dead Reckoning Radio, especially when I talk about abortion and transgender stuff, I am not speaking for the Independent Women's Forum. I'm just speaking for Hadley. So thanks for letting me put that disclaimer in there.
I think our listeners are probably used to the disclaimer. We're
Right.
conditioning them to realize.
Well,
that-
yeah, and we've got new listeners every single week
That's
where
great.
our growth is just fantastic. Don't forget, if you're listening to us on the live stream for the first time, that you can follow and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast channel and catch up on past episodes. Google Play, iTunes, we're there. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes and or any other podcasting you're on, because it helps get you into the algorithm, so you come up as suggested. And you look real. Let me say, some of the big evangelical podcasts only have 16 reviews, and they're all 5 stars, and they're considered like top podcasts. So,
Wow.
Thank you. We're at like I haven't even looked recently, but we're doing well. So
That's
thank
great.
you for the
Yeah,
reviews.
Thanks everybody.
Again,
glad you joined
thanks
us.
to Alliance Defending Freedom, and finally a huge shout out to Remley, who was unable to be with us on the chat today. But
should
she
have
has
said that
put
at the
together.
beginning.
I did.
I did you?
Yeah, I did. We're excited. She's going to be moving to Billings in August. I'm so stoked. She's going to be in the studio with us, hanging out, which is going to be great, and probably like maybe shouting stuff from off mic. Maybe I should give her a mic so we can just have the producer cam set up. A
Yeah.
separate
I don't
camera
think she
just for
wants that.
Remley.
I actually don't think she wants that, but we'll see.
All right. Well, she put together most of the show today, in addition to Brian. Thanks to myself, my production company, for actually doing the tech part of things.
It's all about you, Jay. Thank you.
It's not
Thank
all about
you,
me, but I'm
myself.
the credits. The credit. This is show credits. We got to thank people involved in the show, so it's been awesome.
Red
Special
Pecan
thanks to
Films.
our donors. If you guys have not considered donating, please do. We are volunteer staff. We are Dead Reckoning is a tax deductible 501c3, and I think we pay Hadley a little bit of a stipend just for her time because she's not quite as ownership invested like Brian and I. But we do this on our spare time, and everything goes back into the show. So thank you. Do that. So all that stuff can be found at deadreckoning.tv. Got all the links there for everything you could possibly need. And we're exploring Snapchat. I've actually started getting involved in Snapchat a little bit. I still can't figure out the difference between it and Instagram.
Okay.
But what do I know? So anyway, that said, I'm Jay Friesen.
I'm Brian Matson.
I'm Hadley Heath.
And this is another edition of Dead Reckoning Radio. Peace out.